It's time for another gardening update. Before we get out there and take a close look, let's walk by the garden and see everything at once. This week we've gotten some rain just about every day, so the whole garden's starting to grow well, including the weeds. The garlic's getting really tall, the tomato plants are starting to grow well, and the pepper plants are actually getting a few peppers on them now. We're growing sweet potatoes again in the straw bales, and we have 9 different types of those. The petunias in the hollow log are looking good, and the lettuce is really starting to take off. The sugar and peas in the container are doing really well, and we're really enjoying those. Most of the stuff we have in grow bags and containers are doing well, and the Musa Basjoo bananas are about 5 feet tall already. I mentioned that we're growing sweet potatoes in our straw bales again this year. We grew sweet potatoes for the first time in straw bales last year, and they did so well that I just thought I would try it again this year. You're looking at 2 straw bales tied together, and we have 3 types of sweet potatoes in them. There's purple Molokai, a grocery store type that's got a light skin, and Beauregard. In the next 2 bales, we have Myanmar, Red Garnet, and Yellow Jersey. Then in the next 2 bales, we have Okinawan Purple, Pumpkin Yam, which is a sweet potato, not a yam, and a type that I got from Trader Joe's that is purple. The tomatoes have really perked up over the last week with all the rain we've gotten, and these 3 are 2 Baronia and 1 Tasmanian Chocolate. Right next to those are the carrots, and they're a little bit thin in spots, but I've added a few seeds so they should fill in. Between the 2 rows of peppers, we have some spinach growing, and right next to the other row of peppers, we have some lettuce. That variety is called Rocky Top Blend. The spinach that I overwintered in one of our grow bags is back against the fence, and I'm going to be saving seeds from that. In this row we have 3 different types of pole beans, and in the next row we have a couple of different types. This one's coming up pretty good. Here's our second type, and it's coming up even better. And in the third cage we have another type. And then right next to those are the cucumbers, and I like to grow those in cages or up a trellis every year. I have Market More 76 and Japanese Long. At the end of the next row I have a Matoyo and a Rosa Bianca eggplant, and those are looking pretty good so far. Next to those is our 4th type of pole bean. It's doing pretty well. Then finally our 5th type of pole bean, and we have a few radishes inside that cage that will be going out very soon. And then finally in the last cage we have 2 different types of melons. And I'm going to let those climb the cage and maybe let a couple go down the fence line. Then in a few random locations I let some sunflowers go, and here are a couple that are growing at the end of these rows. I transplanted that small one so it kind of stunted it. This is the grow bag that we have 12 types of lettuce growing in, and it's doing very well. We'll be trying some of those very soon. And I'm hoping to do a video on comparing those, but we'll see how that goes. Right next to those we have some stackable pots, and I have 15 types of lettuce growing there. Those were planted a little later than the ones in the grow bag. And there are the petunias in the hollow log. And I have quite a few planted in the sides of the log this year. I'm really enjoying the sugar and peas in the container, and they're much more manageable size. They don't grow nearly as tall as the ones that I grew last year, and we've been eating some of these for about a week now. To be honest, it's hard for me to walk by these without picking 1 or 2 to eat fresh right out in the garden. They remind me a little of eating fresh, raw asparagus, which we also do sometimes. The taste is similar, they're crisp and a little juicy. To go with our fresh lettuce and spinach, we also have a few radishes that we're getting. We have 4 different types of beetroot. I'm really liking the looks of this one, and I can't wait to see what it tastes like. This is one we've grown before, and I like the fact that the seeds are usually readily available locally. As you can see, it has some really nice looking beets when they're ready to harvest. And we usually end up pickling our beets. We did a video on how we make our small batch pickle beets, so if you want to check out that video, I'll put a link down below. Cylindra has an interesting shape compared to most beets. It's kind of long and thin. This beet is usually grown to feed livestock, and it grows very large. The Washita blackberries are getting lots of blooms now, and these produce large, very sweet berries. Sometimes I grow plants just to learn about the plant, and that's what I'm doing here. This is quinoa. Right next to the quinoa, I have 3 different types of amaranth. I'm also growing these mainly just to learn about the plant and how it's used. I wasn't sure what the seedlings would look like, so I planted way too many. In an earlier video, I mentioned that this was the first year this iris bloomed, and I didn't think I was going to keep it, but I've changed my mind. A couple of the early blooms were damaged by a hard freeze. I crossed it with this yellow and gold type iris, and my pollination attempt was a success. Now I have a seed pod starting to form on the iris, and I'll let that dry on the plant and harvest the seeds later. Then this fall, about in October, I'll plant them out in the garden somewhere. The no-dig potatoes keep getting taller and taller, and I keep piling straw up around them as they grow. The corn continues to grow, and I've thinned it quite a bit since I took this clip. I'm happy to report that the Buena Mulata pepper has peppers on it already. The Jimmy Nardello has lots of blooms, and some tiny peppers started already. The Cubanelle also has a couple of little peppers. The blot pepper is one of our new ones, and it has a couple of little peppers started also. Baronia was our favorite tomato last year, and it has a tiny little tomato already. We're really enjoying our irises and peonies. I just wish they lasted a little longer. The little Musa velutina in the cage is starting to grow pretty well with all the rain that we've had lately. And this is the dwarf Orinoco that I bought to replace the one that I thought died this winter. We're getting several pups that are popping up, and one of the pups in particular looks different than the others, so I'm holding out hope that this could possibly be a dwarf Orinoco. I would be amazed that it survived our harsh winter this year if it is a dwarf Orinoco. About a month and a half or so, I bought some ginger at the grocery store. I left it in a plastic bag, and it started to sprout and form roots already. I loosened up the soil in a spot over by the bananas, and I'll be planting it there. I just put it down in the soil a little bit on its side and covered it up. I've grown ginger before, both in the ground and in containers. It seems to appreciate afternoon shade. That's why I put it next to the bananas. Here's a look at some of the ginger that we grew in the ground, and as you can see, it did very well for us. It also did very well for us when grown in a container. I planned to grow it in a container again, but then I thought about growing it near the bananas, and I thought that might be a good choice. I guess we're going to be creating our own little tropical area over there. Right next to the ginger, I planted 2 turmeric plants. We're reaching that point where everything is going to change quite a bit from week to week, so be sure to follow along. Don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time.